Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hey everyone, John here. And the Virtual Boy and I have a lot in common. We are both Virtual Boys, and we were both born in the year 1995 and peaked in the year 1995. But the thing is, so few people actually own this thing. More people own Dr. Kawashima's brain training for Nintendo Switch, again that didn't launch in America, than the Virtual Boy. And so growing up, I didn't own one, so I just kind of took everyone's word for how bad it was. And it was always the same points just kind of spoken over and over. It causes headaches, you look like a doofus while playing, there's no worthwhile games, it's Nintendo's biggest failure, and I don't care what other people are saying. I don't care about the past, I don't care about how this did commercially. What I care about is what I think. Do I enjoy the hardware? Do I think there are worthwhile games? And the answer to both of those is yes. The Virtual Boy is really impressive for its time and really impressive today still. Putting this thing on your face is really comparable to modern VR in the effect, and there really are some must-play games on the console. So over the years, people have parroted that this is an awful abomination, but honestly, I think we need to form our own opinion, and not many people can do that because not many people actually own the thing. Not even I really own the thing. Special thanks to George Banks for lending this to me for a couple of months. That was really kind of you, George. He runs the Nintendo Dormant podcast. Go check that out. I'm sometimes on there with him. But I really want to get into the overall library and how good the hardware really is. Obviously, there are shortcomings. We'll talk about those too. But the Virtual Boy is really underrated as a machine. So, let's get into this. But before we do, first, a word from our sponsor.
Dads teach us a lot. How to fix things for ourselves, how to pick ourselves up and power on, even how to make do with less so the family has more. This Father's Day, let's show our dads that they deserve the world at a price they can be impressed by. This Father's Day, treat Dad to a pair of everyday earbuds by Raycon, because he deserves to relax, recharge, and enjoy his favorite music, podcasts, and calls in crystal clear sound. And Raycon's latest everyday earbuds are better than ever, with a 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity, and quick charge that gives you 90 minutes of battery after just 10 minutes of charging. Your dad can finally toss those crusty old wired earbuds of his. Ugh. As a dad myself, I can tell you that I love getting some awesome earbuds from my kids at a price that didn't break the bank. And Raycon's everyday earbuds start at just half the price of other premium audio brands. I use mine to listen to podcasts while I work, meaning I wear them pretty much all day, and I absolutely love mine. They also come in a ton of amazing colors. I'm really in love with this blue, and the protective case looks cool and wirelessly charges my earbuds. I love that, but don't take my word for it. Get some for your dad and see what he thinks. If he doesn't like his Raycons, they offer a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked. So get your dad a gift he'll love for years to come. Go to buyraycon.com/GVG to get 15% off site-wide. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring today's video.
One thing Nintendo nailed all the way back in 1995 was realizing VR is best with a mobile chipset. That's where the Quest excels. No wires, nothing in the way, pure immersion. Now, Virtual Boy does have a wire, and things do get in the way, but I think they were right to make it a dedicated platform. I mean, take a look at the controller. It's basically two hands, right? Like how Quest does it, but kind of attached. Not many games exactly use it to replicate a left and a right hand, but Teleroboxer flippin' nails it. Actually, taking a closer look at this, Virtual Boy did dual pads before dual sticks were ever a thing. Games like Jack Bros use it to pull off a dual stick shooter, while that genre wasn't even really an established thing on consoles. It feels pretty good too. I don't love start and select having parity with A and B. It's very weird when you can't see the buttons you're pressing, but otherwise, it's a nice evolution of Super Nintendo, adding handles while feeling sturdy. Not entirely sure about the trigger buttons being little circles on the back, but they do the job. You'll also find the battery compartment on the controller, where this thing squeezes its way through 6 AA's, 2 more than the original Game Boy. You can remove the controller, and the port looks a lot like the NES one, but there's really no reason to do this other than to replace it if you need to. But yeah, this thing eats up batteries like nothing. I got around 5 hours out of these guys, which is enough to play through a few games, but it's not ideal. But there's a lot of ways in which Virtual Boy feels modern, and this is very hard to demonstrate to you, but it's the 3D effect. Look at this footage here. Looks gobbled and hard to process, right? What if I told you that it actually looks delightful? Think about how sprite-based games look on 3DS, like Mutant Mudds and Shovel Knight and Cave Story. Basically, every layer is its own perceptible plane, and that's how Virtual Boy looks, only bigger. So right now on your 2D screen, you see a sea of red muckiness, but in the headset, the bat is its own different layer to the batter. The picture looks far off, and I can easily tell where the ball is in 3D space. One of my favorite examples of 3D is the opening to Mario Clash. There's so many layers of clouds, and then you get that tower in the middle. 3DS was capable of this stuff, but so few developers really utilized it like this. Whereas with Virtual Boy, it's the point of the entire system. You can't turn this stuff off. You can do things that wouldn't usually work in 2D, like a behind-the-shoulder tennis game with Mario's Tennis. It's really easy to tell where the ball is, and the world feels so much more open than anything on the Game Boy, or hell, Super Nintendo. They couldn't replicate anything like this. And to this day, watching the ball come towards your face in Mario's Tennis is really cool. And yes, it is Mario's Tennis, not Mario Tennis. I am saying it right. 3D on the Virtual Boy doesn't just look good for a device from 1995, the standard has barely changed. I've had equal, if not more impressive experiences on Virtual Boy than Quest and PlayStation VR, I guess because they don't tend to do 2D, where the layers are so obvious and pleasant. And the screen itself was doing widescreen as a standard before any other console. You get a 12:7 ratio on Virtual Boy, whereas 6 years later, GBA was doing 3:2. So back in 1995, you get this giant floating screen, and it could do things no other handheld screen or most TV sets could replicate at all. But what about the headaches, huh? Well, first, before we get to that, I want to say how cool it is that there's a red and black 3DS. It never occurred to me that it mirrors the Virtual Boy, and that is rad as flip. And I'm someone who loves the 3D effect on 3DS. It's never given me a headache personally. And in my hours of play, I never had any health blips with the Virtual Boy. I'm not saying that no one's ever had a headache. I'm not calling them liars who won't survive the winter. But the worst I've had is coming out of the headset after like an hour of non-stop Wario Land play, and things in the real world that are red being a little desaturated for a few seconds. It's hard to describe. Like, I look at this box over here, and it looks more like this, and then like 10 seconds passed, and it's normal again. Is that a health blip? Probably. The real problem with Virtual Boy is there's no head strap at all, and so you just kind of hunch over the stand like this and hold your face into it. You can clip the stand off and balance it on your face. That's not so bad, but a strap would fix a lot of stuff here. So, for the most part, I actually really like the hardware. It's got its problems, but the 3D effect still looks amazing to this day, and the red on black color scheme looks ugly on a 2D screen, but it becomes easy to forget about when you're actually playing in the headset and seeing all the layers distinguished from each other. Back then, the Game Boy retailed for $89.99 with Tetris, and Virtual Boy was almost double that at $179.99. No matter how cool this thing was, that's a lot more money for an unproven platform. Even with VR more normalized today, it's still quite a hard sell to get someone to try it. It's no wonder the game's dried up and this thing never came to Europe and it got discontinued. But I'm not here to echo all the history lessons you've heard on this thing again and again and again. I just want to tell you if I genuinely like it, and I do. Not saying you should blow like £400 on this thing, but Virtual Boy is such a cool piece of hardware, and even though it only has 22 games, with 14 of them making their way to North America, they're all exclusive to the console, and most of them are actually good, a few must-plays even. I asked people what their favorite Virtual Boy game was, and I was expecting everyone to say, oh, Wario Land for the Virtual Boy, but most of them didn't. There was a really good variety there, whether it's Mario Clash, or Jack Brothers, or Red Alarm, or Galactic Pinball. The library is small, but it's also good. Some may say there's more exclusives than current-gen consoles. So let's take a look at a few of the games, and the first truly must-have is Virtual Boy Wario Land. This is technically the second Wario Land game, with the true Wario Land 2 coming a few years after, and so you may expect a few growing pains, but No, this still holds up so well today, and games like Mutant Mudds on 3DS were so inspired by what this did. And even games like Donkey Kong Country Returns were very inspired by what this did. With Virtual Boy Wario Land, you can jump between planes, going from the foreground to the background. And that's a really common thing now in 2D games. Like, even games such as Mario Wonder are still doing that. It is a lot more linear than some of the Wario Lands. You basically just have to find a key and then make your way to the exit. And more often than not, the key is just kind of on the critical path anyway. But where the game really stands out is in that 3D effect. You'll get these spiked balls swinging into the foreground and the background, and it's just something that couldn't really be done with accurate perception on Super Nintendo. You get rooms like this that have treasure in, and they just look like they're in an actual 3D environment. There's so many layers here, making this seem fully realized, even though it's just on a 2D plane. You get these excellent boss battles, and they're all about switching planes. Sometimes it's Wario, sometimes it's the boss. It's so smart. There's also stuff in this game that wouldn't show up until later in the series, like these enemies here, and they contextually make sense here. They kind of hide in the background and then show their face into the foreground, and this was reused in Wario Land 4. Of course, you lose the 3D effect, but the actual enemy themselves made a comeback. It is absolutely baffling that this wasn't officially remade or ported to 3DS in some capacity, because it is a genuinely fantastic game, one of the best Wario Lands, and a really, really cool showcase of what 3D can bring to a 2D side-scroller. But how about Galactic Pinball, or should I say, Metroid Prime Pinball Origins, kinda? Yeah, this is a Metroid game. Where is it on your Metroid shelf, huh? Another amazing use of the 3D effect. It really looks like there's just a table floating in space. Though the physics in this one are a little bit strange. It's like there's kind of like an ice hockey puck on a pinball table. It's very slippery. You can get the hang of it though, after a bit of a learning curve. And it does feel genuinely good after that. I also really like using the back buttons as flippers. You can use either the left D-pad, the right D-pad, or the back buttons, and it just feels nice to do that. And even though the controls take a little bit to get used to, I do think this is one of the best pinball games Nintendo has done. Only the other Metroid Prime Pinball really tops it, and that was years later. Now, Mario's Tennis. Quite often, I hear this game called basic. I don't agree. Yeah, this game would have had a lot more to it if the Virtual Boy Link cable actually released and it was multiplayer, but still, I think this is really fun played on your own. The sprites look absolutely amazing, look at Peach here, and you're really not getting the full picture in 2D. Playing this one specifically in 3D is mind-blowing. It feels like an actual 3D plane, and this view would just not work at all in 2D. You wouldn't be able to perceive where the ball is at all. I will say though, doubles is not the best, because from this view you can't actually see your doubles partner, and so you can't trust where they are, so it doesn't really work that well. But the core singles is great. This view works really, really well for this type of game. There's some great challenge in there, the music is delightful, the visuals are delightful. I'm a fan of Mario's Tennis. And Mario Clash, this is another one that I'm always hearing is mid, but I don't agree either. Mario Clash is delightful. It's kind of a sequel to the original arcade Mario Brothers, only working on different planes now. So there's a lot of enemies that can't be taken out just by jumping on them or throwing something at them, but you instead throw something from the opposing plane. So these spiky enemies here, I can only hit them if I throw into the vertical axis. Horizontal's just going to bounce right off. And there's a lot to this, with a combo system and just being able to clear levels as quickly as you can. The level design itself shifts a lot too, which Arcade Mario Brothers doesn't do quite so much. Like sometimes it gets icy or changes the platforms a little bit, but this goes much, much further than that. You get these special stages too, where you've got to perceive where the coin is in 3D space, and you get crowds with Peach and Yoshi and a bunch of Toads. This is another one that really should have been on 3DS. Now let's talk about one that just does not work in 2D. Red Alarm is going to look horrific on your screen right now, but trust me, you can perceive where things are. So this is a wireframe 3D shooter, and there are similarities to Star Fox, but it's not really the same IP. You can slow all the way down, speed all the way up, And when you get damaged, part of your ship gets damaged too. You can repair it by getting power-ups from fallen enemies, but you may lose your boost meter or lose your shields, so there's definitely an incentive not to take damage beyond just losing your health. It's definitely more player-controlled than Star Fox. It's not just fully on rails the entire time. Although you do get boss arenas which are quite similar to the all-range modes parts of Star Fox, where you just fly around a ring and try and shoot down the enemy. But Red Alarm is just one of those that looks horrific in 2D. But trust me, in full 3D you can perceive where you're going. It's not just a bunch of lines everywhere. You actually can see a fully 3D game in there. There's a few Virtual Boy games that feel like they could be part of other franchises, like Red Alarm maybe could be part of Star Fox, and Tellerboxer maybe could be part of Punch-Out! It's not really as pattern-focused as Punch-Out! Is. The way Tellerboxer works is you can either move to the left by pressing left on the left D-pad, or move to the right by pressing right on the right D-pad. But think of it as each D-pad is a hand, so moving the left D-pad down will move your hand down, moving it up will move your hand up. So it's about evading and blocking the enemy punches. But when you're holding down a button, you're also charging up your punch. So it's finding the moments where you're able to charge up a punch while avoiding other enemy attacks, and then whack them with a big old punch. So not so much about the actual pattern memorization like Punch-Out! Has. A little more distinct, a little different, but it has the core DNA of Punch-Out! In there. And Tellerboxer absolutely rocks. And it's one of the only first-person Virtual Boy games. Most of them try adapting 2D games into just a 3D view, whereas this is way ahead of its time. A D-pad for each hand, first-person perspective, gorgeous 3D effect. This is exactly what Quest is doing right now. Look, I'm British. I don't know what baseball is. I think it's some fictional sport from Wii Sports. We had rounders growing up, that's kind of like baseball. And I'm not a big fan of Virtual League Baseball on the Virtual Boy. However, as I was saying earlier, the 3D effect is gorgeous. There's so many distinct layers, and seeing the bat just kind of distinguished from the person is really, really impressive. But yeah, it's baseball, and I'm not sure what that is. I was also lent Virtual Fishing, and this sure is a fishing game for the Virtual Boy. Just fishing in a sea of blood. It's not bad. The 3D effect is cool. This map in particular looks really cool. But yeah, I don't know what you want to tell you. Yeah, the Tetris. This is quite often called a basic one, but honestly, I really, really like it. Yes, it is just kind of basic Tetris, but whenever you clear a line, the lines just kind of pop out of the screen for a second. And when you get a Tetris especially, you get this big V just kind of popping towards your face. It's like Tetris effect, but many, many years prior, and without the godly music. Although the Virtual Boy's audio system can go really loud. How well can I convey this? Like, this is Switch MX volume. And this is Virtual Boy MX volume. But yeah, I really like this. It's basically Game Boy ruled Tetris, so you can't hold pieces, and I quite like that. But in 3D. Rad! There was a second Tetris for the Virtual Boy with 3D Tetris, and this one tends to rank higher, but honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I think it's ambitious. I like what it does. It's Tetris in a full 3D grid, so you're dropping pieces down and sort of seeing it from above. But, I don't know. I kind of like Tetris in 2D. This one just feels like it's doing something different for the sake of being different. Not bad, but not my favorite. Vertical Force, though. I absolutely adore this one. So this is a pretty standard shmup on the face of it. So you start off with a pretty weak weapon, but then you get a power-up, and you get to shoot in different directions, you get lasers. But the core thing about Vertical Force is you can change the plane you're on just by pressing a button. So you can start on the higher-up plane or the lower plane, and the action takes place on both of them. And so there's this risk-reward about whether you stay on the plane with all the action going on and potentially get more power-ups, or if you try and stay away from all the fire that's happening. I think this is just a really clever system, and it looks amazing in 3D. It's a really cool example of something quite traditional being taken to another level, just using the Virtual Boy's unique hardware. And speaking of something fairly traditional being taken to another level with 3D, this is not really an example of that. This is Panic Bomber, the only game in the franchise to be released in the West. This is quite a prevalent spin-off in Japan, and it's Bomberman, kinda mixed with Puyo Puyo. It is genuinely really, really, really good. And I want to try other versions of this, because different releases are in full color, unlike this one. And they get away with it pretty well with basically just different sprites for each one, but usually it's like green, white, blue, and red Bomberman. And I feel like I need to kind of experience it that way. But Panic Bomber absolutely rocks, but the 3D effect itself is barely utilized. I just kind of imagine that the blocks are a little bit behind the grid. It looks a bit odd actually, but the core gameplay is so much fun. Bombs start building up below you as well, and sometimes a bomb piece appears, and you can use it to explode those bombs and just kind of collapse the different tiles on different levels and make these huge chains. Really, really satisfying game, and I'd love for Panic Bomber to continue in the West on like Switch 2 or something. And you know, there's other really great examples of 3D on the Virtual Boy. I think golf looks amazing in 3D. It's just great being able to perceive exactly where you are, especially when putting. And I think the same is true for bowling. There's 2 bowling games. There's standard-ass bowling, and there's Nestor's Funky Bowling. Yeah, Nestor. This is the only Nestor game to ever happen. This is his legacy. But the last game I really want to talk about is Jack Brothers. We mentioned this very briefly earlier. This is quite an expensive game to collect for, especially if you get the English version. Japanese isn't so bad, but it is one of the best games on the system, and the first Shin Megami Tensei game we ever got in the West. In Jack Brothers, you play as one of the 3 Jacks. They've got different properties, whether it's their range, or their weapon, or their speed, and the core gameplay of this is really smart. So you're stuck in this big labyrinth maze, and you've got to try and find keys and find your way down. But what's really special about it is the timer is also your health. So if you get hit, you lose like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So you've got to try and make your way through as efficiently as you can, not taking damage, trying to get more time added to your timer, and taking down all these enemies at once. It's so fun, so frantic, and this 3D effect replicates one of the best 3D effects that 3DS did. So my favorite 3D effect on 3DS is A Link Between Worlds, and there's this one cave in particular where you're jumping off these moving platforms and trying to land on ones below you, and it's very easy to perceive because the layers of depth are outlined through stereoscopic 3D. And the same is true here. You can see all the layers below you, and falling down to one looks incredible. It's a truly excellent game. Kind of like an action shmup with really, really cool bosses, great visuals, and again, the 3D effect, the sprites actually have layers themselves, so Jack Frost's head is like above the rest of his body. It's really, really convincing. And I think those are all the Virtual Boy games I want to talk about today. Again, huge thank you to George for lending me his system and all of these games. Virtual Boy is eternal. It may have lived for under a year, but in our hearts, it will never die, because we know what most others don't. And that's that Virtual Boy is rad as flip, baby. So, my fellas, what have we learned today? We have learned never trust anyone. People out there will see this, something that's rad as flip, something that in 1995 gave a really cool 3D effect and had a really cool library of small but worthwhile games, and they'll tell you it sucks. Well, I'm going to tell you that we are going to imprison them within the Virtual Boy screen. They're going to live in a red and black void forever until they admit it's actually kind of cool. I'm not trying to oversell this thing. Yes, it's flawed. Yes, it costs a lot of money to collect these days. Yes, the library is small. But there's still a lot of really cool, worthwhile games. So whether you play this on original hardware or some other means, I don't care. I'm not your mum. You should not sleep on the Virtual Boy. This may be Nintendo's biggest failure, but still pretty cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Yes, I will catch you. Stop running from me, viewer.